Alright, we're back with more NFL coverage, and in this one, I will be covering the final game of this 2025-26 NFL season. Super Bowl 60 took place yesterday night. And man, I'm not going to spend too much time creating conjecture over it, because over the last couple of recaps, especially the last one relating to the conference championships, I kind of had a semi-preview of the game there as I finished talking about both of those respective games and how I thought things were going to take place in this one, whether it be, specific schemes, specific situations coming up for both sides. I already discussed this from that standpoint. But I will say that early on, you kind of got a feeling of some of the exact same things that I discussed there, especially when it came down to work in the trenches. The first damn run from Kenneth Walker III in this game, and he would go on to have himself a hell of a night, I might add. The man already started out with a great pair of runs to open things up, bouncing it to the outside and taking advantage of his speed compared to other guys out there. And while this would happen a couple times later on, it's like, yeah, every single time you're in that scenario, you're trying to run with Kenneth Walker III in space with a bad angle, you can forget about it completely. And the fact that they were able to put them in that situation early proved to be a very important piece of this one. But it would not finish there as far as his first drive was concerned, because, Sam Darnold was keeping the same momentum rolling, talking about letting it rip if he had an opportunity to. And before you knew it, Barner got domed up and Cooper Kupp hauled in a great catch on the boundary down the field over Marcus Jones to move the sticks. They had to hustle to the line, and they would get the playoff because, as it would be reviewed, it kind of looked like it was bombing around a little bit before Cooper Kupp could get the requisite amount of body parts down for control. But, at that point, you're not going to challenge that call that early on, and the sticks would move into the red zone for the Seahawks. However, as I rammed it through pretty much the entire time in that particular video, it was all going to come down to how both teams would perform in situational football. And man, red zone defense has been great for the Patriots all postseason. In fact, they came into this game literally averaging just about 6 points per game or so allowed, making them the best scoring defense in a single postseason run since the 2000 Ravens. And they came as advertised here. Everything tightened up as soon as they got inside the 17-yard line. And while Kenneth Walker III would get himself another good run in, Shaheed would get boxed up by Carlton Davis III on what looked to be an out route. I don't know. I think this might have been zipped a little too far ahead of him, but at the same time, it's kind of like there wasn't much room to work with. And that's credit to those D-backs putting in some great coverage. And when you look at this as a whole, because honestly, let's just say this. Like, if you are an offensive-minded watcher of the sport, this game was not for you. It was not. Because essentially, when you look at the Seahawks run game, that was pretty much the only piece of offense you got for quite some time. Now, it wasn't like the, response was completely radio silent, but it felt that way. It was damn near like that. Where do you even start? For starters, look no further than the fact that, they still just wanted to primarily use Ramondre Stevenson. And although he's a good power back, the front four of the Seahawks is too strong. Way too strong to be allowing Ramondre Stevenson to bully them around. And while he would get himself out of the backfield for a good first down gain, before you knew it, he would be stymied once again. Not to mention the woes on the offensive line just continued to eat away at this team. If it was going to come down to trench work, it didn't just mean establishing a rushing game, although that would help. Both defenses made it a point to blitz each other's faces off. And Maye felt that immediately as Derek Hall, of all edge rushers on this team, would make an instant impact play and get the absolutely clutch sack on Drake Maye to move him back and create a situation where you're now playing far behind schedule at this point. They got back into 3rd and 9 after Nick Amawori landed a tackle on Drake Maye with him using his legs a little bit, which, again, people were saying at the point of time that could be an X factor for them in this game. Not enough to extend the drive, and the Patriots would punt from there. The Seahawks, on the other hand, they learned Gonzalez ball today. They certainly did. You know, people were asking, questioning what exactly they were going to do after Jackson Smith-Njigba set a franchise record in the last postseason game against the Rams in the NFC Championship for, you know, that overall performance to take them to the Super Bowl in the first place. Now, with the whole world watching pretty much, what exactly were the Patriots going to do to stop him, or at least make him a non-factor in this game? They did have some bracket plays going down, but this was mostly Christian Gonzalez and his individual effort, making it a point to shadow him pretty much every time. Pretty much every time. And in moments, you know, they just had to completely abandon throwing the ball his way. They did try at other points, and we'll get to those. Gonzalez is more than likely a player who's going to make you pay for doing that repeatedly. And there was a chance for some fortune here. I mean, this one was just tough. It all comes back to the pressure. Now, I will say that Sam Darnold overall fared a little better than Drake Maye in that aspect. And, I mean, he was able to get out and extend plays like this one. But even as he got away from Williams, you had Hawkins trying to chase him down. Spillane was trying to get in the action here. And before you knew it, you see a streaking Jackson Smith-Njigba wide open down the field on the left side. And if that's accurate, that is a motherfucking touchdown. I couldn't even lie. And to my absolute, like, oh man. I thought it was such a great look. And before you knew it, you see the ball going right over his damn outstretched arms. Pass fell incomplete. That was tough. And that would be one that they'd certainly want back, but in a field position ball game, they had no other choice but to punt it there. However, on a night where you weren't going to see much overall offense, the defense had the fucking goods every single time. Yeah, Booty might have gotten himself a great 21-yard catch on essentially a curl route from Drake Maye. As you know, you're just trying to settle in the game at this point. However, as they tried to incorporate Travion Henderson, Ernest Jones IV came right up on a delay, filled the gap extremely well, and hit-stick this shit. They tried to get Travion Henderson out in space on the very next play out of the backfield, and Josh Jobe, of all people, gets a routine textbook tackle on him to force another TFL. And then with something that they'd been doing all night long, Devin Witherspoon, we already understand that he's one of the more versatile cornerbacks in the league. That's why he's been regarded as one of the top overall for, a couple of years now. And they would try to unlock him in a number of different ways in this game. But most importantly for this one, this would be the second time, as far as this game is concerned, to start out, they sent essentially a corner blitz from the slot. And with Will Campbell engaged, there was nobody there to pick up Devin Witherspoon. It was a great play call. He used all the pursuit in the proper angle to get in the backfield and terrorize Drake Maye for a 10-yard loss to give the Seahawks the ball back yet again. Nothing really gave for the Seahawks outside of the rushing attack. And it looked as though the Patriots were starting to clamp that up a little bit. Yeah, they did kind of luck out getting a first down on this drive anyways. But man, the Patriots defensive backs were flying all over the place too. Not only was it Christian Gonzalez, but you also have to give Craig Woodson some credit for this. Like, they traditionally run that Rashid Shaheed reverse, and more often than not, they've been able to catch teams off guard. Whether it be the Rams multiple times, they did it to the 49ers to move the chains in a massive way there. So, as a gadget player, again, Shaheed has made a massive impact on this team. And so they look to try to get him involved again. Maybe, hey, we're doing so well overall in the rushing attack, just smash mouth, traditional smash mouth style up the middle. Why don't we catch them off guard with a little outside run here and a sweep pattern? No, Craig Woodson was not fooled at all. And to think that, again, they go through this entire offseason, going back to the start of the year, they favor him and Hawkins, the fellow rookie out of California, over Kyle Duggar to the point where they're willing to trade the man and let him go. That is just insane to think about, but it's paid off. Not only has he been a vital piece to this defense, but they also mentioned at some point in this game that he was the leading tackler for them in this postseason. So, again, that's what it comes down to in the Super Bowl. No matter what, like, any given player on any given day can be an X factor to make a play in the big game. Look no further than the last time these teams were here, and they made multiple allusions to that. They had Malcolm Butler, of all niggas, doing the fucking Patriots opening game ritual, bro. They had him ringing the fucking bell. They knew exactly what they were trying to do with that shit. But he, again, essentially was a player just really spending time on the practice squad like that. And that play, as stupid as it was for the Seahawks to call when you had Marshawn Lynch in your fucking backfield, it turned Malcolm Butler into an instant rising star in the league. So those kinds of things are always important to look out for. Man, they could not generate offense to Jackson Smith and Jigba, though. They were not allowing it. And again, smart on the Patriots to do it. Let's see what happens when we take away what we believe is your best asset. What exactly are you going to do? Prove to us, in fact, that you can operate as a team outside of relying on just him to get the job done for you. That, was working well for them to start out the game, and they would try their hardest to maintain it. But that would become increasingly difficult. Even with all these stops in mind, it's not like the Patriots' offense had a response. Drake Maye was, again, feeling a lot of the same pressure. Traditionally, he's more accurate, and by the end of the half, in fact, quarterback completion percentage was not great for either team. The thing you have to take into account when watching the game is that in some cases, those are just tough drops. There were a few overthrows, underthrows, and a lot, especially for Drake Maye, we'll get into that later, there were a lot of off-target passes for him, something that doesn't traditionally happen, especially if he's operating with a clean pocket. Also, they tried their best to limit Drake Maye's legs and, again, force other running backs to contribute, which with Leonard Williams putting a stop to everything Ramondre Stevenson was not able to do, and thus the Patriots would run or punt the ball yet again. Now it came time for Kenneth Walker III to cook. As we've said constantly, that man is a fucking monster in space, and he put that shit into full display with a pair of runs on this particular drive, as he would not only bounce it to the outside and skirt all the way downfield for a 30-yard gain, but he would also just veer right past Christian Gonzalez and those boys after escaping Milton Williams' pursuit as a just run-stopping threat on the defensive line. He'd get away from him and barrel out to the right side for a 29-yard gain down the field. Just like that, they were back in the red zone with a chance to strike. And honestly, a touchdown in this moment would be great. It would be great. It would make things so favorable for Seattle. However, even if you come away with any points in this period of time, you've already done your part, right? You want to build up to getting those big scores eventually, but if you can get on the board here and you protect the football, that is going to balance itself out, to be honest with you. And unfortunately, Craig Woodson would once again make a name for himself with multiple TFLs in this sequence as they got into the red zone to push them out and force Jason Myers to kick yet another field goal. Now we get deeper into this quarter, in hell, Ronnie Mills, of all people. Let's talk about it. Seahawks defense is so damn good, yet they have so many young pieces and they're so deep that Ronnie Mills, a man who had been injured for pretty much the entire season, got himself a sack in this game on Drake Maye. And it's like, he literally, boy. When I say bully ball, I mean this shit. Now again, once we look at the overall thing, you'll understand that, man, the Patriots overall, to this point, in the postseason have not had a great performance on the offensive line. And namely, you look at Will Campbell and Jarrett Wilson, they're a pair of rookies on, I suppose they were on the left side as far as this game is concerned. Both of those guys are trying to hold it down at the tackle and guard positions, respectively, on the right side of the line, and trying to protect Drake Maye's blind side. But pretty much every single defensive line that they faced off against has targeted those two guys, and specifically Will Campbell. And you get a situation where Mills, again, is going right up against Wilson in this game. He just pushes him so far back, and he essentially traps Drake Maye at that point, because he's able to get his arms around Wilson and essentially force him back into his own man at that point, making the sack even easier than it needed to be in that situation. Stephon Diggs would get his first catch of the game in the second quarter, weirdly enough, before they'd have to punt the ball yet again. This just turned, honestly, into a battle of wits. Who could outcoach the other? Who could out-scheme the other in this game? And again, who could win those key moments in situational football terms? Like, that's what this quickly boiled down to. But the game itself, the playing style, again, for some people, especially those who aren't, proponents of defensive play, they were definitely having themselves a rough time in this game. Like, the Seahawks on this particular drive, they'd make some progress, but it would be a tough end as Kenneth Walker III, although he had previously been able to get himself out in space and move the chains out of the backfield, this one was a little weird. Like, again, Sam Darnold as well, to just put it into perspective, he finished this half with 9 of 22 passing from the field, which doesn't sound the greatest at all. It sounds very bad. But a play like this, where it hits Kenneth Walker III in the hands, but it also trailed behind him a little bit, and you had Robert Spillane matching him in man coverage as he motioned out. Like, I understood the read in that situation, because again, neither team was shying away from the blitz. Like, that shit was getting dialed up left and right and left and right over and over and over and over and over again. And a play like that is going to be a good counter to it. They just did not get it in the right timing. And that was what affected the overall play here. Thus, the Seahawks would be forced to punt again. And the Patriots, honestly, with 5 minutes left or so, they had a chance, if they wanted to play this strategic, to go down the field and just put something on the board. I can talk about that from the Seahawks standpoint. Same thing for the Patriots. Now you're running with less time in the second quarter. You have control of the ball currently. If you can even muster up a decently timed drive that produces some kind of score, you are still right in this game. Like, for all the great work that the Seahawks defense had been doing to this point, and they got all the praise that they deserved, it's not like they were just completely, on the offensive side, blowing them out of the water. No, this was fairly even on that part. All the Patriots needed was just one response. Something, anything. The time had to be now, sooner rather than later. You could not keep lingering around and just wasting away opportunities that your own defense had been providing for you in this game. Like, as much as the Patriots, again, they struggled in the regular season and they turned it up in the postseason. But again, overall, they had themselves a great performance to start out the Super Bowl. And you needed something from your offense at some kind. It's like, how many times are you going to see the field and you have to continue to try to be the engineer for your overall team at that point? Because they're simply not doing anything on the offensive side. That's just got to be a rough realization to come to at that point. And as far as this job is concerned, it would kind of continue. They got some good fortune after, Michael Dixon had an immaculate punt that landed inside the 2-yard line. So they were already forced back, and you're thinking at that point they've got to be a little conservative to create some space. And they would initially get a first down with the Mario Douglas working against Josh Jobe to move the sticks. And, essentially he had a zig route. Like, Josh Jobe was already engaged on Hunter Henry as a decoy, and you have to watch him because he is a traditional possession tight end. That is who they would traditionally be looking for to pick up a first down. So it's a smart play call by them, but it's still, even with that happening, they could not get out of their own way. They would penalize Will Campbell for a false start, and they would be backed up to where Mac Hollins was going to try to go for a deep ball himself, and that shit promptly failed. Now, I'm not going to lie, the Seahawks tried that with Rashid Shaheed earlier and missed it on what was another knockout over the top by Christian Gonzalez. I'm like, deep balls weren't at a premium in this game either. And so at that point, it's like, if Shaheed is much faster and can't get that over the middle, what makes you think Mac Hollins being much slower is going to lead to him accomplishing that job? That's just kind of fucking crazy, bro. Like, I ain't gonna lie, dude. Man, oh man. Alright. The Patriots would be forced to punt yet again, and at this point, you did the worst thing you possibly could have done, which was give the Seahawks the ball back at this point. Patriots were going to get the ball to start off at the second half. So at the very least, if you trim down some time, if you don't give the Seahawks much room to even eke out some points here, like, you're set. But it just would not continue to last. They leaned on Kenneth Walker III, and they even got a good play from George Holani, a good pair of plays, to initially pick up a first down deeper in New England territory. And while they would stall out there, along with a little bit of weirdness, like, this one was just, I don't know, like, Cooper Kupp was trying to go for a catch over the middle, and the pass was so low that initially it hit the ground. However, as they kept looking it over, they decided that, okay, this might be worth challenging. It almost looked as like though he caught it, I mean, the ball bobbled up a little bit, and he tried to reclaim it. It seemed like he did from a completely different angle, But then there was a second one that displayed something totally different and suggested that it was going to stand as an incomplete pass. Now, since, reviews would have to be sent to New York and everything like that, they take the time out to handle it, and it would be voted on. Well, it would be upheld, the initial call, for an incomplete pass. You get the third down, and they try the traditional angle route that they consistently do, honestly, with any of their guys. You see how Jackson Smith-Njigba was able to get open against the Rams on that route that he caught against Cam Curl. You saw Jake Bobo pull it off in the same game. They love that little corner post action, and they tried to get it to him again. This one is like yet another situation where you have to factor in an overthrow here. I don't know. Christian Gonzalez did guard it well. He honestly did. It would sail incomplete, but I'm like, if you understand how exactly this route was run, it looked for a second like Jackson Smith-Njigba had the space to make what would have been a touchdown catch if it was thrown more accurately and out in front of him. Instead, Darnold led him behind, allowed Gonzalez to creep back into the play with his long wingspan, and the rest was history as far as that pass is concerned. So I was like, damn, just cannot have that shit happen. You just can't. But you know what? Jason Myers, once again, one of the more automatic, one of the best kickers in the entire fucking NFL, period, would get himself yet another field goal to go as the half would essentially end right there with a 9-0 score. So again, I tell you, if this was about offense for you, you weren't getting a whole hell of a lot of it. The defenses were playing at an elite, and I mean elite level, truly. Even with me leaning to the Seahawks, obviously, it's like, dude, you have to give massive respect to what both of these guys are doing right now. Like, you had, honestly, with a couple metrics here, detailed that this was the 5th Super Bowl in history without a touchdown and a half, and the Patriots themselves, collectively, would put up just 51 yards in the first half, the 3rd fewest offensive yards by any team in a single half of a Super Bowl all time. And at that point, it's like, that is where you also have a problem. At least the Seahawks on some occasions, and again, you can chalk that up to Darnold being able to escape around a little bit. You can also chalk it up to Kenneth Walker just bowling the fuck out. His 94 rushing yards in the first half would be the second most in a Super Bowl game behind Timmy Smith. So when you can establish ball control like that, when you can make the occasional big play down the field, and when you can establish the run the way that the Seahawks had been able to do, again, if you look at the first half of the season and you try to figure out whether or not they could get it done, you'd probably be so confused as to how they were able to pull it off in this game. And again, in pretty much the last half of the season, they started to figure it out. They'd been turning it up tremendously from there ever since. And then Kenneth Walker III, as far as the overall postseason run has been concerned, he hasn't missed a beat yet, to be honest with you. Seahawks fans understood that, hey, if they could keep on feeding him the ball, they were going to be more than fine. And that's what makes this entire thing scary. You know, everybody was going to key in on JSN, and especially with him winning Offensive Player of the Year via the NFL honors, you had a feeling that that was going to happen. At the very least, those pair of things were more successful on the Seahawks side. But overall, like, the game was still in reach in theory. And the thing the Patriots had to take into account, especially in their case, was honestly just overall protection and, again, a better ability in the rushing game themselves. Like, mind you, with the Seahawks being down Charbonnet, they're really leaning heavily on Kenneth Walker III. And again, he's been able to answer the call in the postseason for the most part. You knew that was a game plan coming into the game, and you couldn't stop it at all. Even with Robert Spillane, because there were a number of different things going on, especially from a pressure standpoint. Like, there was a fucking play earlier. They had Woodson and Spillane in the area, and they had sort of like a diamond simulated pressure. Bro, both of them niggas collapse in at the perfect moment as Sundel is engaged with the defender up front. And then the guards have nothing they can do about it at all. So they just get a pair of free rushers coming in Sam Darnold's grill to force an errant pass. The pressure was there, and they hadn't been winning out as much as the Seahawks were able to on their front. If you could continue to ramp that up, the Patriots felt like they were going to have a little bit of life here. And overall, both teams, especially when looking at it by the end of the game, which I'll handle later, both teams were doing a great job of, again, forcing each other out of manageable territory. What the hell is 3rd and 5? 3rd and 2. You rarely saw that in the first half of this game. Everything was, again, off schedule for both teams here. And they were forced to have to operate from a far longer distance than they would typically favor operating from. So from that standpoint, that was naturally going to make things a little more difficult on the offensive side. Man, you had one more half, essentially, to decide your overall fate on this season. A ton of work on both sides had been done up to this point just to be here in the first place. And now you were about 30 minutes or so away, after the halftime show that is, from being able to determine how exactly your season would be remembered in the history books. That's typically how it works. And the Patriots knew that they needed a change of life in some way. So I wasn't shocked to see them trying to start off by having Henderson be the lead back. And to be fair, they got a little bit of energy from him on the first couple of runs. That is exactly what you'd be looking for. But it's just that Seahawks defense was way too fucking good. At all three levels, they were automatic. Linebacking core, locking shit down. The front four was getting after Drake Maye all night long to that point. And on the back end, coverage was pretty damn great too. You ain't expecting Josh Jobe to go out there and handle Kayshon Boutte on this 3rd and 3 the way that he was able to. Manned up. They're trying to create the mismatch, what they think is a mismatch, and that's typically how it has been with Josh Jobe. But the man can legitimately cover. And with doing that, they were able to force yet another 3 and out for the Patriots. Not an optimal start for them in the second half, after already being shut out for this long. And the Seahawks themselves, again, it's not like they got a lot going, but they were able to move the ball down the field. Jackson Smith and Jigba would log essentially his longest catch of the night on essentially an in-breaking route, after Rashid Shaheed himself got a dime on a different in-breaking route to set that one up. And then Sam Darnold as well. Again, Milton Williams has been here before. Obviously, last season winning a championship with the damn Eagles. So he's had experience in these moments. And while he was trying to absolutely pulverize Darnold back there, he was able to elude it. Say all you want, Darnold can run a little bit. And he was just scrambling outside with that thing, was hustling up the field, and before you knew it, he got himself an 11-yard gain to get the Seahawks on the plus territory at this point. It was Kenneth Walker III again being able to work this time as a receiver out of the backfield yet again on a short screen, countering yet another blitz sent by the Pats as he would utilize his speed to his full advantage and work right past Marcus Jones for another 20-plus yard gain down the field. Again, simple play in all honesty, but it's a smart counter. Nobody was really over there to watch Kenneth Walker III at that point because you also had them flank out trying to account for JSN out there as a decoy route, which you cannot leave him open. You just can't. They would capitalize off of that, and the Cup drops were just a little interesting. There were some drops with him, but there were also just some very weird reads. I really didn't know what to make of it. And granted, he would be able to come back around. You expect nothing less from a man who was a Super Bowl MVP himself. But man, back-to-back downs, you just get some very weird plays involving him specifically. And I really didn't know what to make of that. I guess you've got to be more accurate than that if you're Sam Darnold in that situation. But again, you're on the board. It's a 12-0 ball game now with Jason Myers banging in another field goal to go. So this was all going fairly well for the Seahawks, even with you just putting field goals up. We understood early on that it was going to probably come down to defense overall. And if it had to be that way, well, you had the utmost confidence, if you were Seattle, in what the hell the Seahawks had been able to do defensively to that point. So it's fuck it. We may as well. If that's how it's got to be, we have the talent to make it happen. We have the skill set to make it happen. It's all good. Once again, Travion Henderson on this drive would set them up very well. And honestly, Drake Maye was pressured on this play. I thought for damn sure the Mario Douglas, because on this play, you try to get a little bit of a fake going. Demario Douglas is wide open. I think he was just trying to come back to the ball here, but he had enough space to secure the catch for free. And Drake Maye, yet again, just misses him somehow, some way. Unfortunately, that would force the Patriots to punt again. And at that point, it's okay, you understand that there are probably going to be some jitters here. But at some point, why is it that Drake Maye is playing scared? Flat out. To me, that's kind of what it felt like after a while. And again, with a defense that intimidating, it's not hard to see. But it's damn. You pair that kind of mindset up with the fact that he's a second-year quarterback just getting into this situation. And it felt somewhat like a recipe for disaster considering how poor the protection on the offensive line had been too. And Drake Maye also owns some responsibility for, again, just being hesitant at times. He made himself a sitting duck. And again, he has the athleticism to escape. So it's there are a number of different ways you could go with that. But no matter how you want to slice it, if you're a Patriots fan at this point, you're still not on the board. And again, defensively, you're still containing the Seahawks. They were able to have Milton Williams break past Anthony Bradford for a forceful sack that essentially took the rhythm out from under them completely. Even, again, you don't want to play with injuries like that. But after they got this stop to force the Seahawks to go 3-and-out, it would be mentioned by the broadcast team that Jackson Smith-Njigba was taken into the locker room. Now, I didn't know what it was for. They were mentioning that they were putting something on his ankle, and then you get a report later saying that he had been in concussion protocol as he was taken back to the locker room eventually. Yeah, that happened. And honestly, I will say from my standpoint, I wasn't as concerned with Jackson Smith and Jigba being out of this game, if that makes any sense. You obviously wouldn't want them to be hurt in that situation. That could very well be a disaster at that time. But the way the game had been flowing at that point, even with it being a 12-point ball game, the Seahawks had all the control in this game. And the Patriots have literally not shown you that they have an answer or an effective enough counter to go on the board against them yet. But this sequence of drives where Jackson Smith and Jigba was out, if you're thinking that that's their best offensive asset and you'd been locking them up, now you can do even worse damage to pretty much everybody else out on the field and potentially force a mistake of some kind. The Seahawks team had been negative, in the negative margins, I should say, in terms of giveaways and takeaways in the regular season. And so be it. They hadn't really been up to anything of that kind in the playoffs. If you could force that kind of action here, if you're the Pats, and give yourselves an opportunity to at least take some momentum in this game away with a score or with a forced turnover, the game could still be had from your perspective. You just needed something, anything at that point, as Byron Murphy II crashes in from the rafters, to put them behind the sticks yet again. Now, I will say, they get into manageable territory after Mac Hollins actually decided to catch this football. But I don't know how Kayshon Boutte didn't. And again, you had different people, because I'm watching the broadcast. They're essentially alluding to the fact that Drake Maye, again, facing more pressure on this throw, he does step up in the pocket, and he does have a wide open Kayshon Boutte here. They just think he threw it too hard. And I'm like, maybe that is the case. He did kind of try to sling that with a sidearm with some absolute firepower. But I will say, it did hit Kayshon Boutte in the hands. You could say that that's on Drake Maye, but at the same time, it hits him in the hands. He's fully extending his arms out for it over the middle. So it's like, you have to make the play at that point. And again, there's no room for nitpicking here. This is the big game. Somebody has to fucking step up at some point and do something. It doesn't matter. And, you have multiple conversations on that Pats sideline just trying to motivate everybody at that point. It's going to take a team effort to come out with a win of this kind. It's not going to always come down to a single player, being a constant thorn in someone's side. That can happen. We've seen that over the years. But when you can have a full team rally together, play off of one another's skill sets, that's when you become a truly unstoppable force. As cliche as that might sound, and the Patriots just could not get that figured out yet. Technically speaking, Stephon Diggs again had been limited as far as this game is concerned to, through this point. And Hunter Henry also hadn't seen a bunch of action. In fact, I think he dropped the pass too. It's not like your best offensive weapons were getting catches. And again, that is also something that had been working against the Patriots in the eyes of some people. You compare overall cores of wide receivers and running backs in this particular game, and it's like, the talent on the Patriots side might not stick out as much as it does Seattle's. But they still had their chances with the way that those guys have been getting shut down to, again, make some kind of impact. And they could not. Once again, the Patriots got good fortune when they managed to get yet another Christian Gonzalez breakup over the middle, this time as he was guarding Cooper Kupp. And I'm like, damn, that's kind of an absolute mismatch. But they would force the stop yet again, most importantly. You're now nearing the fourth quarter and you still don't have a point on the board. But okay, if we can go down, if we can drive effectively, bleed some clock, take some control of the time, and score a touchdown, preferably at this point. Okay, maybe we still have some life. And then the worst possible thing that could have happened for the Patriots in this game happened. Because, yes, they were looking like a cardiac offense, and they were literally getting shut out. But this had been a mostly clean ball game to this point. There were a few penalties that started to ramp up in the third quarter, but they were fairly called. And the first half was mostly clean to the point where it almost became the first time in Super Bowl history that an entire first half was not consistent of any penalties whatsoever. Also, for situational purposes, there weren't any takeaways or turnovers in this game yet. Both teams, despite facing an inordinate amount of pressure, Sam Darnold was dealing with like a career high of, blitzes on dropbacks at over like 53 fucking percent. And you can imagine that Drake Maye was dealing with the same thing. And even with the rushing game being able to take some of that pressure off at times for the Seahawks, that is still such a dastardly number. And yet neither team, although you could argue that Gonzalez probably got close a couple times, and the pressure of the Seahawks could have also forced that on a couple of occasions themselves. In terms of generating one, it hadn't happened yet. And then Derek Hall had to crash in from the rafters and essentially force a fumble in just the most gut-wrenching way imaginable. Because it's not even like Drake Maye was in motion trying to wind the ball up and he got hit by Derek Hall. No. He's getting wrestled down to the ground, and Drake Maye, for whatever reason, he's not even holding on to the ball in a textbook way. He just drops it on the ground. And I'm like, if you're a batsman, you're like, what the fuck? That just happened. I'm watching it myself, and I'm saying, hey, okay, you have him just essentially putting the ball on the fucking floor, and Byron Murphy II recovered it, got to the ball very quickly. And that was the moment right there where you could argue that pretty much everything changed as far as this game is concerned. Because the Seahawks had already been suffocating the Patriots to that point. And the Patriots, they'd been trying to hang in there. They'd been trying defensively. Christian Gonzalez, if things were to go a different way, and I'll probably discuss that at a different point, okay, this man was probably on pace for a potential Super Bowl MVP nod himself. That's how great he was playing in this game. I already mentioned that Craig Woodson had been going off. And they'd been gelling together fairly well for the most part. But at a time, there is only so much that a defense can do. And when you are constantly going 3 and out, after 3 and out, after 3 and out, after 3 and out, the one time you appear as though you're going to drive down the field, you not only lose the football in that situation, you now have the Seahawks in plus territory on your side of the field as we enter the fourth quarter. And this Super Bowl would be just the second one with no touchdowns through the first 3 quarters, with that hearkening back to Super Bowl 53. A time that no Rams fan out there wants to remember. Nobody. It will probably go down as one of the worst Super Bowls of all time. in the eyes of many people, and I don't think I can disagree in that situation. But if you're matching it up with that, it's like, you're in some rough territory, to be completely honest with you. And the Patriots, they would have to, again, go out there, potentially gassed out, and try to get a stop on this team in this situation at essentially the start of the fourth quarter. They'd been playing against them so well, with people coming out and saying that, hey, this is the best offense that the Patriots have played against in the entire postseason. And they'd held them without a touchdown to this time in the game. There was a situation as well where the Patriots had a essentially 4th and 1, and people were clamoring around me saying, hey, go for it. Call up a fake punt. Do something. Catch the Seahawks off guard. In theory, my thing is that you don't do it because you understand how great the Seahawks offense is. And to give that kind of unit such a short field in that situation, with essentially a field position game in play, a defensive style game in play, would not be the wisest thing in the world for you. And with Vrabel trying to operate in that manner, he felt that it was the best decision to just simply not worry about that. And I'm not going to grill him for that. I can't blame him for that. Because when you see this kind of drive right here, you get exactly why he would avoid even putting himself in that situation in the first place. Now this was just something that he couldn't control, because it would be A.J. Barner essentially leading them down the field after a Cooper Kupp third down conversion to haul in a dime right over the seam, wide open, unexplainably, for a 16-yard touchdown catch to give him the first of the game overall and put the Seahawks up 19-0 at essentially near the start of the fourth quarter now. And even though the score looked weird, even with that being the first touchdown of the game, mind you, that in and of itself could have proved to have been the dagger right then and right there. But not before a little bit of weirdness. Because I'm not going to lie, there was a situation where apparently I didn't see this in time. They were just like panning over to it, like a brief part of it. Josh Jobs and Stephon Diggs got into it on the sideline. And it got to a point where they were just trying to grab the hell out of each other. Josh Jobe actually, as the ref is literally trying to break things up, he punches the shit out of Stephon Diggs, catches him with a mean hook. And I'm like, okay, because you see, before we even get to all that, you have Mike Vrabel just laying into this fucking ref. And I'm not going to lie, taking that into account, you can't blame him. They're going to usually flag that shit all the time. And I don't even care if it is Stephon Diggs being the second man involved in that. Trying to defend himself in that situation, because Job did start it. That's fair play. Then you actively see him, as you're breaking it up, punch Stephon Diggs. Throw a true punch, and you do nothing about it. I can't say that Mike Vrabel doesn't have the right to be mad and pissed off in that situation. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? In a game that, again, had been mostly okay, although I will say that they did miss an offsides. That was mentioned on the broadcast. That would have given the Patriots an additional first down. Aside from a couple things like that, this was mostly a fairly cold game. So to just have something like that pop up at that moment was utterly ridiculous. And the play would stand. Nothing was enforced. But it's safe to say that the Patriots right then and there would catch pretty much the most fire they had throughout this entire game. Because they'd instantly find Mac Hollins on back-to-back throws. First one was a fucking dom. You have him running essentially an in-breaking route, and you've got Ernest Jones in the area. You've got Tariq Woolen in the area. none of them have the greatest positioning in the world to go out and deflect the ball because it was thrown so well by Drake Maye. Right over all their heads, right past all their arms, and right in the breadbasket for Mac Hollins for a 24-yard gain. Then you get him head-topping to Tariq Woolen for a touchdown. Their first touchdown of the game to make this 19-7. The sign of life for them. It was not over in the slightest. Maybe the fortune started to change around for them. And if you're a Patriots fan, you'll take it. But it's like, dude, I'm like, Tariq Woolen, what the fuck are you doing? Because this man is legitimately just trying to scramble over there. He's not even set. If this is man-to-man coverage, he's not even set. He's giving Hollins all the leverage he needs to work to the outside and muster up enough to get the advantage and get himself out in front for the football. You handed it to him on a silver platter instead of just being already set and disciplined enough to make the play. Like, I could not believe that shit, dude. But it happened. There was no reversing it. And the game had to be continued from that point. Now, the Seahawks, you could argue that it was probably a little bit of adversity that they faced here. Especially if they couldn't come up with anything on this particular drive. And lo and behold, with them being able, the Patriots that is, to force another weird throw from Darnold down the field, it looked like Shaheed was open on it. And, I mean, people were saying that, oh, Carlton Davis III was grabbing him and yada, yada, yada. But it's also like, even still, you have a chance if it's thrown accurately for Shaheed to catch it. It just didn't happen. It went right off the fingertips. And the Patriots were able to force another punt. This was a golden opportunity for them. And it looked like they were still trying to generate a lot. Now, they were backed up far, and you had a brutal miss to Austin Hooper on what would have been a corner route that would have at least picked up a substantial amount of yardage. He's no burner. He was not getting himself a touchdown on the play. But that's just yet another thing from Drake Maye in this game where it's like, okay, that's a routine pass that we know he can traditionally make. And the fact that you're missing it by that much, it's like, damn. You got a whole lot going on. Now, Ramondre Stevenson would try to be cool and shit, hurling over Josh Jobe for a 13-yard gain. And you'd also have Drake Maye essentially on a third down at this point as they were able to limit Hunter Henry. You know, the focus would be on him, and you have linebackers watching everything to the outside, but with not putting a spot there, which for some reason the Seahawks were doing repeatedly, and, you know, I guess Maye at times had to do a better job of diagnosing that as well. One of the times he did, he was able to burst a 16-yard gain right up the middle, uncontested. And it looked like they had a flow going for themselves until Drake Maye decided to send it deep. Now again, Kyle Williams was running a deep over route at this point, and he has been their consistent deep threat down the field. But it was underthrown severely to the point where Julian Love could just undercut it completely and get himself a pick for the free ski himself. Barreling all the way down the field at that point, just hustling, getting himself in Patriots territory yet again. And once more, with that now being the case, you're already in plus territory. You've placed the Patriots essentially in submission outside of one touchdown drive and sequence for that matter. This could be the put away. And that's exactly what the Seahawks were trying to do. Before you knew it, this possession lasted over 3 minutes as they would kick yet another field goal, essentially just leaning on Kenneth Walker III to take him home, like he had been doing essentially the entire game. And it's like, why not? Hadn't failed him yet. So you're up 22-7 at that point. The Patriots essentially at this point are on their last leg. This is legitimately your last chance And, ooh. Now, again, they, were able to overcome an initial sack from Byron Murphy II. And Hunter Henry, as he's done all season long, he was able to move the sticks for a 16-yard gain down the field. But that motherfucking Seahawks front line was unrelenting in this game. They would not be denied. And all over the board, including the secondary, including the linebacking core, all three phases were getting it done. All three phases were clicking on all cylinders. And that did not change. That play right here put it all into perspective for you. Because not only do you have Uchenna Nwosu in the area, but you also have Jaron Reed and Devin Witherspoon coming off of another corner blitz in this game. It got home. And not only was he able to force what would be ruled in post as a deflection, it initially looked to be a sack. You have it fall right into Uchenna Nwosu's hands for what would be deemed a pick six to essentially serve as the dagger and give the Seahawks the 29-7 lead with about 4 minutes left in this game. Just like that, 12s all over the place. Could almost taste the sweet relief of victory. Almost. Now, you still have to finish the game, and they try it. Like, there were just so many stoppages in this time. It's like, it's not even worth it. The game is virtually decided. I don't get the worth in that, but that's okay. Drake Maye would get himself a touchdown out of vanity on essentially, I don't know, it was so weird. He had to throw it all the way back across his body. Nobody was watching Ramondre Stevenson, and he managed to work himself into the end zone with this ball almost being dropped, by the way. So that was a weird sequence, but at that point, it's like, hey, you can have it, man. And eventually, with that clock winding down, the Seahawks would get it done in Santa Clara, in San Francisco, in their fucking stadium. Fuck the 49ers. Fuck the Cardinals. Who gives a shit about the Cardinals? Fuck the Rams. I saw something about Pika Nakua tweeting a laughing emoji about saying Darnold. Fuck the Rams. The Seahawks would hail from the NFC West, representing the NFC in this game, and they would beat the damn Patriots 29-13. Let's fucking go. At this point in time, I'm still on fucking cloud 9 after that end result. Trust and believe. But before getting into the insight standpoint of things, for both teams, I'm going to be fair. Like, there's no way you can discredit what those guys did on that side. So I'm going to include both. But from the standpoint of looking at simply the game, I was right when I made that, pseudo prediction about just generally how the flow was going to be and everything like that. I did end up being right about a couple of things, though not in the ways that I would have expected. I did mention and then just kept on screaming that this was going to come down to situational football and how teams approached, third downs, potential fourth downs, general management of the clock, and things like that. Neither team did well on third down in this game. Now, you could chalk this up to a little bit of garbage time for the Patriots having a slight advantage in terms of conversion rate. But overall, third downs were terrible for both teams. They combined for 10 of 31 on third down attempts. Those defenses, again, they generally were able to get them behind the sticks on either first or second down, to the point where at a time in this game, the average depth of distance for third downs was around 7 yards or something like that for both teams. And it might have remained that way. So when you're constantly having to settle for those difficult range attempts, it's naturally going to be harder to convert them at an accurate rate. And it made sure that the game was going to be a slow, ground out style of play. Which again, even if people want to call it fucking boring, you think I got a problem with that? Fuck no. Fuck no. Because there was a counter there. For a while. At the very least, defensively. Also, the rushing attack. I did mention that it was probably going to be more of a strength that the Patriots would need to rely on, with having that by committee option in the backfield, compared to having essentially just Kenneth Walker III, and in this game, surprisingly, a little bit of George Holani carrying the load for this Seahawks team. And while the Seahawks and Patriots would average the same amount of yards per run, some of that is also garbage time for the Patriots. I mean, you want to talk about getting damage done in the fucking trenches. The work that those linemen up front, including Gray Zabel, including Charles Cross, who would return, and including Anthony Bradford, even if he did get beaten on the fucking Milton Williams sack earlier in the game. Their run blocking, and especially as they continue to have this scheme with the outside runs, pulling extra blockers around and trying to create loops to pick up oncoming defenders out in that area of the field. Oh, it was fucking beautiful. And they ran for 141 yards total in this game. Plus, in terms of time of possession, the Seahawks did win that with around 33 minutes or so of it. But most importantly, and as we get into talking about the Seahawks specifically, I'll bring this point home even further. They didn't turn the ball over a single time in this game, making those three late, mind you, very late in the game, Pat's turnovers the single most important difference in this game. Because again, as I said, they were hanging in there for quite a while. This was still a 2-possession ball game. It felt like an insurmountable lead in a way, given how mightily the offense had been struggling. But they were still in the fight. And then you get those takeaways in those crucial moments in the fourth quarter of the ballgame. Setting up short fields for the Seahawks offense on multiple occasions, and again, essentially handing them the game on the initial scoop six turned out to be a pick six because they ruled that a deflection forced by Witherspoon. Either way, that's just immaculate pressure in that situation. Something that the Patriots just had no resistance for, seemingly. And thus was the true story of the game in terms of, the overall production here. But man, oh man. There's a lot to get into from the perspective of both teams. And you know where I have to start. And speaking of the run game, Kenneth Walker, the motherfucking third, he's a fucking beast. He's a beast, man. The second that this man got drafted in 2022 by the team, they envisioned this kind of production for him. And no, it hasn't always been that way in his Seahawks tenure. He's had some down seasons recently. He's had to now settle for split carries with Zach Charbonnet and everything like that. And with all that going on, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, hey, if he gets even more touches with what he can already do out in space to people, imagine just how great the numbers for him could be instead of him barely crossing 1,000 yards every season. As if, that threshold is still something that isn't highly respected amongst the running backs in the National Football League. But I digress. The shit got so bad to the point that they just started throwing darts at the fucking wall. Do you know how many reports over the last week or so trying to, create a fucking narrative about Kenneth Walker III leaving and then just having shit coming out about him potentially going to the fucking Chiefs in free agency? What the fuck are we talking about? With all that he's contributed to this team in this postseason run. The fact that he had over 100 scrimmage yards in pretty much every single game and accounted for pretty much across the entire postseason, like 4 or 5 touchdowns as well. It's like, dude, there's no shot that they would pass that up. We gotta be serious about this. There's no way they are going to completely bypass all of that. You must be out of your fucking mind, dude. The shit can get risque, but the numbers do not lie. Yeah, 4 touchdowns in the postseason with 313 yards on 4.8 yards per carry. Capped off with an absolute masterclass by him specifically. I'm talking 29 touches for 161 yards. And he could have had a touchdown too. Because with a play that happened late, you're essentially ending the game at that point. They're winding down the clock, and he breaks loose for a massive touchdown run that would have just driven the dagger in even further. The only thing that held him back was a Jalen Sundle holding penalty. I'm like, fuck, that would have been the greatest way to cap things off. But still, you'll take everything he put out there in this fucking game. Just think about this shit. A 5'9" running back, known primarily for speed, being accounted for that much, being given the ball that much, like a bell cow running back. And he averaged 5 yards a fucking pop in the biggest game of the fucking season. Why would they move on from that? You know what? It wasn't him just continuing to show that blistering speed out in space. He was getting down and dirty. He was extending plays, keeping the legs churning, and making sure defenders were hanging on to him with every ounce of fucking effort that they had, and he still wasn't fucking going down. Bowling over niggas in an open field and moving the sticks that way. And then again, showing the versatility. Charbonnet could be a better power running back, but they were giving him some up-the-gut runs. And more often than not, he was able to dominate with that exceptional blocking up front and also a good blend of power himself as a more compact runner of the football. That is just undeniable effort in a game where you needed every single bit of that. Because the way that they were guarding JSN pretty much made him a non-factor. They wanted to make sure that he was phased out of this ball game for as long as possible. And to think that Jackson Smith-Njigba finished this game with 4 receptions for 27 yards. From that standpoint, the game plan worked. The game plan worked for New England. Once they limited him, they thought they had it until they realized that while people on the outside were going to continue to highlight JSN, and deservedly so, there's no doubt that he could stick out as the very best player that this team has to offer. And in any other context, when a team's best player is shut down, more likely than not, they don't have a chance to win. But this Seahawks team, throughout the entire season, has proven one thing that I don't think many people seem to understand, even though a good amount of analysts have made this point. This team goes way fucking deeper. This team is so fucking well-rounded. And JSN can be the best player, but he is also an added luxury to have on top of every single key position that this team fucking offers. Up and down the roster, there are very few spots that you can look at and you can say, we have a weak link here. You're not really going to fucking find it. And when push came to shove, when JSN was phased out, it was rough. But it was primarily Walker III holding it down, on top of other players in the receiving game stepping up, having big-time games themselves. But there was no question that aside from the obvious, aside from them just completely shutting the fucking Patriots down, it was Kenneth Walker III, as far as this game is concerned, who carried the load. With no fucking complaints, with very little frustration whatsoever. Doing what the fuck the team asked of him, and then some, to bring them home with their second championship in franchise history, in their 50th anniversary of their inception in 1976. And with that in mind, even though he didn't score a touchdown in this game, he deservedly got himself a fucking Super Bowl MVP. The very first running back to do that in this century, and the first to do it since Terrell Davis in 1998 in Super Bowl 32. His amount of rushing yards were also the most in a Super Bowl by a running back since then. Just an exceptional masterclass from him. But of course, there were others that contributed as well. Look at Cooper Kupp getting his second ring. And while he, throughout the entire season, might not have been regarded as the same elite overall receiver that he once was, or the once feared weapon down the field, his experience has just catapulted Jackson Smith-Njigba into what he has become. And again, that's documented. That's not me talking out of my ass. He said that on numerous occasions. And that's the beauty of it as well. Jackson Smith-Njigba is coming off a season where he's done that, where he finished overall with the third most receiving yards in a general season, including the postseason, in NFL history. Any other receiver would be clamoring, demanding that they get the fucking ball. But Jackson Smith-Njigba has also repeatedly said, on numerous occasions, that he has no intentions of truly being a diva style wide receiver. That the team is much more important to him than individual numbers. That he didn't necessarily care, literally before the game even starts, They ask him about the Offensive Player of the Year award win. And I don't really care about any of that. We essentially have this right on in front of us. And whatever it takes to win, we're going to do it. Do you know how much respect that mindset commands? And that's the best player on your team. That is general growth. And Cup can be a large contributor to that mindset as well. In this game, again, there were a few drops from him, unfortunately, but he did finish as the leading wide receiver with 6 receptions for 61 yards in this game. And A.J. Barner as well also got 4 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. Caught all 4 of his targets. Barner is probably not going to be considered as, compared to the top tight ends, the more highly regarded ones, don't know if he would stack up as a household name to general NFL watchers at this time. But man, what you saw from him in this game was the culmination of a tremendous second season from him. I mean, he is one of those tight ends that generally does everything well. He's a damn good blocker. He can get out in space and serve as a safety valve to move the sticks. He can get vertical downfield if you need him to. You're not always going to ask him to do it, but he can more than hold his own out there. And for an added bonus, he can serve as a runner in situational cases, like those 4th and shorts. Hey, that's the truth. They've been highly effective with that. So maybe he's not regarded as an elite tight end, but you gotta put some respect on his name after a game like this. And just all over the place, man. You are going to have those headliners. But when you look at this roster and you see them going crazy, combined with the people who don't necessarily get all the buzz on the team coming out and performing alongside them, it's nothing short of just special overall. And the Seahawks, man, oh my gosh, they got that shit done, bro. We got to continue it from that perspective. Because that defense, hey, bruh, that motherfucking defense right there, that is how you do it. That's how you fucking play defense. That's how you play it. I don't give a fuck if you want to call a game boring. That's your prerogative. They clamped that shit up. Clamped it up. Tremendously. When you can hold a team scoreless for 3 fucking quarters. And, you had people kind of addressing Collinsworth, with some of his commentary on it. But genuinely speaking, what else can you do in that situation? Every single thing the Patriots were trying to accomplish, they were very much thrown off rhythm. There were some comments, leading to the fact that they were trying to, Collinsworth even said it early in the game, mentioning that they were trying to approach the game in a similar way to that of them facing off against Denver in the conference championship game. And even if that is the case, it's not like the Seahawks defense was falling for that at all. All 3 levels, they were everywhere. They were... the shit you can't even put into fucking words. That's how good They were playing all over the fucking field, dude. And you look at some of the overall defenders, it's like they honestly still have room to grow with the team. And that's where, once again, John Schneider proves himself to be a genius. Drake Thomas is a first-year starter, even though he's been on the roster for a while. Nick Amon-Warrior's a rookie. Devin Witherspoon will honestly probably be looking for a contract extension, which is well fucking deserved. Do you see how he fucking played in that game? Do you see how he played in that game? Pretty much all over the field, unrelenting in every phase of the fucking game, in coverage, with tackles out in space, playing down low at times, playing high. No matter where they lined him up, he was making a fucking impact. And need I remind you that this dude is 5'10". We're talking about one of the shorter players generally being one of the most feared defensive players in the fucking league. It's mind-blowing. And I tell you, if there was any player in this game who was going to earn themselves some form of recognition alongside Kenneth Walker III, if not him, it would have fucking been Devin Witherspoon. That's how good he performed in this shit. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. As I mentioned, some of these other guys had already been doing their own damage. And also Ernest Jones IV finished this game with 11 fucking tackles. The former Ram coming into this game, getting it done at this moment, and also notching his second Super Bowl win on the good side this time. Tariq Woolen, it's like, man, like, he's good, bro. He is now a Super Bowl champion, but man, the discipline stuff has got to get sorted out at some point, sooner rather than later. And then you talk about that front four. Byron Murphy III second is still young. Derek Hall is still young. And he would have also had himself a case for a potential Super Bowl MVP as well. But you're not always going to put the counting stats into, full display with what he did in this game. It wasn't just him. Again, Riley Mills literally logging his first career NFL sack on the biggest stage. And that's before you even get to the pressures that Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed were able to impose throughout the entire fucking game. And Uchenna Nwosu, who had also started out this season hurt, came back late, had to go through a few growing pains, but was ultimately healthy enough to perform and got it the fuck done. And then, man, generally speaking, oh my gosh. Between all the fucking... oh my gosh. All the fucking reminders of this shit. Me, literally, over a week ago, having to see a fucking replay of Super Bowl 49 in real time after the fucking interception to seal that game took place. Malcolm Butler fucking showing up there and ringing that fucking bell for this Pats team. That get back a motherfucker. That get back a motherfucker. And to put the icing on the fucking cake too, you want to know what they show immediately after the game ends? A Nike campaign with Marshawn Lynch talking about the art, the desire, the pursuit of a motherfucking get back. And they got it fucking done. 11 years in the making. I watched that damn game when I was a 9-year-old. I don't even think I fucking cried. My heart was broken. And all these damn years later, they've healed a number of different Seahawks fans' souls out there with a dominant win. With nothing left in fucking doubt. Absolutely nothing. To make it even better from that standpoint, they called DeMarcus Lawrence a madman when he sent out that fucking tweet saying he was never going to win a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. And you had Micah Parsons respond to that immediately, trying to question what exactly he was getting at, trying to draw back at him. And what the fuck did DeMarcus Lawrence do in his first season with the team at the age of 34? He won a fucking Super Bowl. As they mentioned on the broadcast as well, he was potentially in a situation where he would have had to tend to something completely different in the event that his wife had the pregnancy go through. He was at 37 weeks. Any number of things could have happened at that point. And again, to hear that kind of familial component of things, it just really puts all this into perspective about how this thing for some people can be way bigger than the game itself. There's a brotherhood that you are going to war with at this time. And you still have so much support from all over the place. Whether in spirit or in person, when you consider how some of these different players on both sides, namely Ramondre Stevenson, namely Ernest Jones IV, lost their parents recently. And we're still going out with the support of the organization, with the support of the players, with the support of the coaches around them. Going out doing everything they had to last for this long. Fighting for as long as they possibly could to try to reach that goal. Only one team can do it. But when you look at it on both sides, players are fighting for so much that you don't even know about. And to reach that rewarding component of it, like, that shit can truly be a great joy to some people, and the culmination of a journey that honestly few others could replicate, because those experiences are distinct to those people, and it is what makes them them. So, like, as much as you want to, from that standpoint, if somebody is warranting, a little bit of criticism, that's fair, but, you can't just completely discredit that component of it as well. Criticism is fair, but, to go overboard with it and not, factor in all that different stuff would just be irresponsible from that standpoint. And again, that is what honestly makes this sport what it is as well. That's what makes this event, this big game, what it is. And you have to respect that overall. But man, it sure does feel fucking sweet when you are on the winning side. There is no denying that. That's what every team in the fucking league wants to do. And yet these niggas had the nerve to say that the Seahawks couldn't do it. Odds makers, I don't give a fuck about gambling. Fuck the gambling shit. 60-1 odds in the preseason to make it. Again, they're not a factor, but this shit pisses you off when you hear the fucking Cardinals had better projected odds to make the fucking Super Bowl. And they had the Seahawks being one of the worst teams in the fucking league. And they got the fucking job done. What the fuck you gonna say now? Not to mention, taking it back to that point real quick. Everybody's joking about it, and it's fair, right? Because with that event happening, you can, have all that go down. You are well within your right to constantly joke about them not running the ball with Marshawn Lynch on the goal line. It happened. It's not like you can take that away. If you want it to stop, you have to go out there and do your fucking job. But guess what? Fuck Darrell Bevell. These niggas, this team is not anything like that at all. And that's another good point to bring up as well. John Schneider is the first GM to lead a Super Bowl team back with an entirely different roster. Entirely different. A number of the coaches from that particular staff, when they last won it, are no longer here. A number of the players on that squad who last won it, Russell Wilson namely being on a different team now, are entirely different. Most of those players are out of the fucking league entirely. With some, including Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas III, being projected candidates for the Hall of Fame. That's how long ago that shit was. And you have a team, again, of established veteran players and young rising stars alike getting back to this point over 12 years later and hoisting a Lombardi trophy. The vision might not have always been there, but man, it all worked out for him. He knew exactly what he was doing. I'm talking about John Schneider here. He knew exactly what the fuck he was doing. And it just deserves a ton of respect for a guy who has consistently been one of the best general managers in the fucking league. And it's about time he gets his due. Ironically enough, as the entire team, as I already mentioned in a recap, is now up for sale. Jody Allen is up there. This is essentially going to be the last time that she's representing the fucking organization like this. But what a way to go out on top. And again, it's crazy to say. Like, I've been watching other stuff as well. And, somebody brought up the point that, like, it's not like the Seahawks have been in a situation over the past decade where they've just completely dropped off a cliff. Like, no, they've been steady and steady and steady. Even if you want to say that there have been some mediocre years in there, they've consistently been a force. And while they eventually had to move on from some of those pieces, where exactly did that entire thing lead them? Right back to this spot where they sit atop the throne at the top of the entire fucking operation. Like, that has to warrant a massive amount of credit. And especially when you consider the move to go out there and get Sam Darnold in the first fucking place. And I mean, again, him being the quarterback, there's going to be a lot of focus on him and what he may or may not provide for this team. And again, I had my own fucking doubts about the shit coming into the season. I didn't necessarily believe in the vision. And again, as I already said in a past video, he shut my ass up instantly. Because you have to have more faith in what the fuck John Schneider is doing. And it's fucking wild, man. When you look at the overall progression, yes, he's been on 5 different teams to this point. And at that time, you're usually a certified journeyman. Instead, Darnold just became the first quarterback in NFL history to win a Super Bowl after playing for 5 or more teams. Do you know how fucking crazy that is? Man was literally with Baker Mayfield in Carolina in 2022 after the Jets' tenure. And then had a very deep backup role in San Francisco, where he already reached the Super Bowl. Didn't win, of course. The Chiefs were just the Chiefs at that time. Minnesota writes his ass off as well in a fashion that they still may not truly be over. And this entire season for him was just poetic. Because for all the stuff we can say about get back and everything like this and how sweet it can be, to go through all of that, if you're any player in any sport and still, through it all, find your way to a spot where they cannot take that away from him. They can't. It all goes back to that Week 16 game against the fucking Rams, where they took their ass to overtime after Sam Darnold did all that shit in the first 3 quarters and some change. I already said at that point, right then and right there, the narrative fucking shifted for him. And that's been the entire fucking season. Now, with a win like this, I don't even care if he completed 50% of his passes. And he had a touchdown pass, threw for 202 yards. It wasn't the most efficient game in the world, but it got the fucking job done. And that man was getting pressured just as much as Drake Maye, and he was able to weather the storm in a much better fashion. This means everything for Sam Darnold, whether or not one is willing to admit that. And he certainly knows it. Because with this ring right here, with this entire postseason run, talking about seeing ghosts and shit, well, now he's seeing blue and green confetti as he raises that trophy, standing on top of the fucking podium in a rival stadium. Don't trust them against the Rams? Okay, how about he goes 2-1 against them and puts together the performance of his fucking career to get the Seahawks to this spot in the first fucking place. Even with the numbers that Stafford put up in those fucking games. You saw the outcome 2 times out of 3 favor Seattle in those fucking games. And this entire sequence, at the very least, asserts himself as a top 10 quarterback in this fucking league as we speak. At the very least. But above all else, he's in the upper echelon of overall players. No longer can you joke on him and overlook him, underestimate him ever again. Because he just did something after going through one of the more unstable careers a quarterback can have. He just did something that the entirety of the fucking 2018 draft class amongst quarterbacks has not fucking done yet. And they haven't even reached the Super Bowl themselves. Now he's a fucking Super Bowl champion. What the fuck are they going to say now about him? He can't get it done in big games. He's just fucking shown you. Especially in the second half of the season, he's shown you what he can do. Now, how exactly are you going to handle that moving forward? That's the key here. Also, man, to move off the Seahawks, again, you don't want it to be that way, but, bruh, they fucking played almost lights out in this shit. Just understand this for a second. Because the thing, again, with Sam Darnold coming into this was also that he was going to be a turnover machine. Accounted for 20 in the regular season. Well, not only did the Seahawks go the entire postseason without turning the ball over, when they said in big games he was going to hand the ball over to a defense ad nauseum. Not only did he hold off of doing that, and even if you want to challenge him and say that he did not have to really face a bunch of adversity, that just shows you how great the team is overall. Because across the 3 games, the Seahawks trailed for only 95 seconds. A minute and 35 seconds of trailing. On top of controlling the line of scrimmage, on top of controlling the time of possession, and on top of protecting the motherfucking football. All 3 phases of the fucking game. All 3 phases of the team in full sync. Y'all gonna give the Seahawks their motherfucking respect. Y'all gonna do it. Like, even as they're on this throughout the entire season, until we get in playoff time, you're not even seeing them get a shit ton of national coverage compared to some of these other fucking NFL teams. Now you have no fucking choice. You have no choice. You can't avoid it. They are here right fucking now. And they've commanded that respect. They earned that respect and they seized it on that fucking field to get the job done in Super Bowl 60. As an added bonus, again, we talking about all 3 phases. Yo, Michael Dixon is one of the best punters in the league for a reason. That's why he got extended earlier in the season. From a coffin corner to multiple other punts deep inside the 20-yard line, deep inside their own 5-yard line and shit. There's a reason why he's remained a staple and I think a captain of this damn team. And he went off in this game, even with punters not truly getting that kind of love. And then Jason Myers as well. Perfect for him, for a man who was also a former Jet, along with Darnold, along with Leonard Williams, and has been around the league for quite some time. He found his home in Seattle and has been an elite kicker since joining the fucking team. And this season, overall for him, will go down in history as well. One of the more reliable and one of the best kickers in the league, bar none, at this moment in time. And with what he was able to finish and accomplish in this game confirms it. Because he became the first player in NFL history, Jason Myers, a kicker, the first to score more than 200 total points in an entire season, including the postseason in NFL history. And he finished with, they say 205. I think I saw more towards 208. Nonetheless, when you are that reliable to where, again, even when the offense hit cold streaks, there were entire games where he took it upon himself to win them some ball games. When you have that kind of reliability every fucking where, it truly pays off in the long run. You saw him pull it off, nearly pulling off in the first matchup against the Rams. You saw him against the Colts get all 6 field goals in that game to win that one. It's like, it was just great to see all of that come together in that moment for them to accomplish it on that fucking stage. And again, with the way things are looking, with the way the roster is constructed, they could lose some guys, but at the same time, there's going to be a good amount of retention overall. And you know John Schneider will still, even with the Seahawks essentially having the 32nd pick overall in the draft, barring anything crazy in between now and the draft, you know Schneider's going to draft well. Is that even a question? Fuck no. So like, hey man, what a time to be a Seahawks fan. But with all that being said, I've got to be fair. For time, I might be a bit, and I guess I probably should have been a bit more to the point anyways about it. But I can't not talk about what the Patriots were able to do across this entire season. I can't say that this season was an overall, like, in that locker room, okay, they're going to view this season as, coming up short. Some of their players might view it as a failure. But it's not to be disrespected. As they mentioned earlier in the game, they became the first NFL team in history to improve by 13 or more wins, including the postseason overall, as they entered this game 17-3. And again, I've already explained it. It's like they've gone through years at that point of being at the bottom of the barrel after having a 2-decade dynasty. Still, they pulled the plug on it because they understood that it was like, we, as constructed right now, we're not going to get much further. And they tore down the entire thing. It took years to work themselves back up, but they got back to where they've traditionally been. Even with them now becoming the losingest team, well, not the losingest team, but they've now lost the most Super Bowls in NFL history. It's like, still, you've been there so damn much. And even that in and of itself is something to marvel at, something to take pride in throughout your season. None of that is guaranteed. And the fact that Drake Maye was that damn young, coming into this, second youngest behind Marino to reach a Super Bowl, bro, that is definitely something deserving of praise. You can't just discount that at all and act like that is not, like, you just can't do that, right? But, man, Pats, it's definitely going to hurt. You saw it from Drake Maye, even Stephon Diggs, at that point, it's like, this is his first Super Bowl. And he comes up that short. Like, even now, even removed, a little further from it, like, it's not something that's going to be made easier on them in the days to come. As much as I talk about how sweet it can be to be on the winning side of it, man, as a team who goes down in the Super Bowl, you have just as much running through your head. Like, you thought, honestly, that you had as good of a chance to get the damn job done. And to just get completely dominated in every way, shape, and form is not what they had in mind. Not at all. Between Mike McDonald's defense, limiting Josh McDaniels and what exactly he could pull off from there, the offensive coordinator spot, and then also Clint Kubiak giving him that work as well, it's like, man, you just look at that first and foremost and you say a number of different things. We could have done this better. We could have done that better. Maybe if we get this play to go our way, if we don't make that mistake, if we don't do this, if we don't do that, it's like, man, there's just so much right now in their mind. And it's going to take them some time to work that out. Man, it is truly not a guarantee. They'd mentioned it at several points. Marino was the youngest to get there. He never returned and went down as, honestly, the best quarterback still, from in some people's view, considered to be the best to never win a Super Bowl. Never returned there after that 84 season. You can't sit here right now and say that this is going to be the same outcome for this Pats team. But again, the randomness and the pathway to get there doesn't really get any easier. Like, you have to play the schedule that is presented to you. That just has to be understood. And yes, they had the easy schedule since the 1999 Rams. Easiest strength of schedule. So, yes, that was a bit of a layup for them to return to the playoffs, you could argue. They still had to tough it out. And again, you could attribute that to kind of the weaker play on offense. They thugged it out in pretty much every single game throughout this playoff run to reach this point. And those turnovers are brutal. If not for them, who knows what could have happened? Because they were in the fight for the majority of this game. Even with the Seahawks seemingly dominating on the ground and with overall numbers here, it did not prove to be truly out of the realm of possibility for them to go out there and get this job done until the start of that fourth quarter. And when you look at a result like that overall, you take all those things into context, it hurts, but there is genuinely a lot to be proud of this season. It is all a part of the learning experience. Even with them having that overhaul of free agents that topped or was right at 30 overall in the offseason. And that was a massive boost. Again, needed for a team that was so damn young and being led by an inexperienced head coach, we can say, in Gerard Mayo at the time. But you got the right guy in that locker room in Mike Vrabel. And even he came out and said, even as I can break down some of the stuff here before moving on and, just capping it off, it's like he was not willing to throw anyone under the bus. He understood that everybody had their own role to play in this game. And especially when it came to offensive line play, even though some people may want to give him shit for it, it's like, you have to respect that. Because, we will definitely come after coaches, just for no reason throwing their players under the bus when it's uncalled for. Sean Payton. Vrabel's not going to do that, as he said. Everybody's got to own it. And they're more than confronting that right now. But, hey. As long as they continue to have that collective nature, they're going to be consistent contenders. Like, no Super Bowl is truly guaranteed. Hell, again, looking at the Patriots themselves, they were also a team that had some of the worst odds in the same ballpark as the Seahawks to reach the Super Bowl in the offseason, making this one of the most unlikely matchups of all time. Like, you can debate about whether or not they earn their right here, but my fucking goodness, they got here. Like, even if you look at the easy schedule, again, it was not a truly given path. You still have to go out there and win these games, and they did that. They were just met with a fucking unstoppable force on the other side. And call it what you want, they did get punked. They did. That's the truth. At least offensively. Like, again, defense more than held their own. Looking at it. Between the game that Gonzalez had that I mentioned, between Craig Woodson balling out, also Carlton Davis III being able to force some action, even Anthony Jennings being able to get in there, get a few pressures for himself, and Milton Williams, of course, a vet in back-to-back Super Bowls. Yeah, some massive contributions from those guys. But in a game where they had to come up with answers, they just didn't have any. The thing that hurt the Patriots the most did come down in a way to just, I can't fully say inexperience, because it's not like the current Seahawks team. Again, this is a completely different roster. Even with Ernest Jones IV and Cooper Kupp being Super Bowl champions. As constructed, the overall core, especially some of the, core players on the team between Kenneth Walker III, between Devin Witherspoon, between Jackson Smith and Jigba, between Tariq Woolen, and guys of that nature have never been in this position. So it's not like, even if you look at their overall performances and have criticism for that, you can't necessarily chalk that up as a penalty on them there. Like, no team was really ever exposed to this. The current rosters, outside of a few players individually. Like, this is the biggest stage. So, nerves are definitely going to take hold. And I'm sure that they would hit everybody, especially in the first couple of possessions. But the Patriots allowed that mindset to just completely overtake any and everything that they were trying to do in this game. Like, Drake Maye, for as much poise as broadcasters and analysts will say that he has when standing in the pocket, especially a clean pocket, the intent of the Seahawks in that game was, again, to get him off target. And they hounded his ass all night long. He had very little room, very little time to throw or extend a play outside of a couple of scramble runs that I mentioned in this game. Just think about this for a second. Drake Maye entered this as one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. In this game alone, he had a career-high 10 throws off target. And again, looking at some of those passes, like, yes, some of them were drops as well for Drake Maye, as he went 27 of 43 passing and picked up 295 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Some of that was garbage time, admittedly. You can chalk a few of those incompletions up to drops, but at the same time, like, a settled Drake Maye, a poised Drake Maye would certainly make those reads. Yet, everything was just all for him. That pressure was starting to get to his head as Derek Hall crashes in from the rafters. When you have a quarterback that unsettled, it's genuinely not a good sign. Again, while Drake Maye probably owns some of that, you also do have to look at the offensive line play. For one, outside of Drake Maye, and again a couple of late runs there, running backs combined for 13 carries and 42 yards. Like, the idea in that moment, although both defenses had been playing so damn well, at the very least, you could try to catch Seattle off guard if you move the ball efficiently in the ground game, which is why this was such a key point for the Pats in the first place, as I mentioned. And they just were not able to establish it at all. Again, Seahawks have been a stout run defense all season. So from that standpoint, it's not a surprise. But it's going to put even more of a burden on Drake Maye at that point. And so, of course, he's going to have to drop back over and over and over again. And it also wears down that offensive line just as much. But even past being worn down, they got fucking Swiss cheesed. They got Swiss cheese, man. I mean, I already mentioned that Campbell has been much maligned in this postseason alone. He had been through a good number of just weird encounters in his rookie season. Overall in the regular season, he was fine. He would deal with a slight injury, I believe, before returning and getting warmed up for playoff play. He's been hunted across the entire run. And again, every team has been looking to target him. Like, you have to give Campbell some grace. He is also a rookie too, trying to figure this out. And you're asking the man in this postseason, just look at, hear some of the names that he's had to deal with as a left tackle. Whether it be Khalil Mack, Tuli Pelotu, Will Anderson Jr., Daniil Hunter. Then Nick Bonito and also Jonathan Cooper. In this game, whoever you want to classify as an edge rusher in any given moment. They'll have DeMarcus Lawrence out there. They'll have Boye Mafe out there. They'll have Uchenna Nwosu out there. They'll have Derek Hall out there. Again, it goes deep for this Seahawks team. Those are a good number of elite, or at least very capable, very high-end edge rushers in the NFL that Campbell has had to deal with. And more often than not, those guys have had their way against him. With time, with experience, he'll learn. But there's no denying that he went through all of it in what can only be described as a genuine welcome to the NFL moment at the worst possible time. In fact, this game was just such a rough one for him specifically, to the point where his 14 pressures allowed were the single most by a single offensive lineman in any NFL game this entire season. And it happened on the NFL stage. You combine dealing with that kind of pressure coming from one player, on top of that mindset already creeping into Drake Maye's head, and you just have an abject disaster. Which is what makes this, again, not very surprising from that standpoint. Because some Pats fans from the outside looking in may not even be able to trust Will Campbell at that point to handle his blocking assignment. Then you're having Drake Maye again literally move around discombobulated. There were moments where he was getting frustrated on the sideline, and that rarely happens with Drake Maye. The off-platform throws that weren't even remotely accurate. And the turnovers. It just kept piling on and on and on for this Pats team to where it felt like even when they were trying to get themselves in a rhythm, they could do nothing. Absolutely nothing. But it takes a team effort, again, as I said, to come out on top in a game like this. So again, everybody bears some form of responsibility here. And you couldn't expect them to just go after one of their own guys and pin the onus on them. Especially with a game that went in this fashion. It's just so difficult to do that. Like, you have to, again, if you're going to be a team thriving on situational football, you can't turn the ball over in that fashion. And considering that some of those third down pickups are garbage time, their accuracy on that probably could have been even worse. If not, like, closer to next to nothing entirely. So, man, to have that happen is so tough. And that line overall, it wasn't just Will Campbell. It was Garrett Bradbury up the middle, getting pressured. It was Jarrett Wilson, alongside Campbell, getting bullied by a fellow rookie in Riley Mills, as I already mentioned. And overall, the line accounted for 6 sacks allowed, which tied for the most in NFL, in Super Bowl history, I should say. Keep in mind, for a while, again, they ruled it as a deflection. But if that Witherspoon sack ended up standing, they would have had as many sacks at that particular moment in the game as they gave up points. I don't even know if it's a matter of predictability, but the Seahawks managed to have pretty much every read down and had a favorable counter for everything the Pats called. I even saw something from Maye essentially saying that, hey, once we saw a film, we knew exactly what we had to do, essentially. To have your offense go down like that, to where you have a player coming out and saying that they have everything figured out to a T before they even get into the game, that's rough. And again, from the onset, with the fact that you, again, go 3 quarters without a score, nothing of any kind. It's like, that's just hard to overcome on the biggest stage. So, for them in this situation, it is important to see how, again, they respond. And I will say that there was a good point brought up by Cam Newton at that time, kind of addressing Drake Maye personally, even with all that he said about him this season, addressing him personally and trying to encourage him, trying to enlighten him on the fact that, again, this is, an opportunity to move forward in a proper way where you account for those emotions now and still have enough energy to go out and try to do it all again next season. Like, I think the most important thing here is that, yes, on the biggest stage and, in the biggest moments of this postseason for Drake Maye, it has generally been tough. You could argue that for a number of players on this Pats team. There's no question about that. However, if there's one thing you can take away from the entire Super Bowl, and especially the Patriots in this situation, a clean slate is everything. It means so much. Look no further than the quarterback playing against Drake Maye in this game. Look no further than Sam Darnold. We can fucking say that now. He just went out there and went through all those trials and still proved that he could reach the pinnacle of success in the league. Now again, that is a unique route to get to that point. It can look different for everybody. But if they, again, don't allow them to have those emotions overtake them, rather fuel them, it should motivate you. And if they come out next season looking like that, anything can happen with this Pats team. Anything is possible. Man. But as far as that action goes and the insight, that'll do it there. Just general commentary as well. Again, for time, I'll condense it. Not to be that kind of guy, especially after I talked ad nauseum about the Super Bowl halftime show last year. What I will say is that I liked the Super Bowl halftime show this year. Some of the commercials were just unbearable, and I was genuinely losing my shit in there. Like, if I saw another fucking advertisement about AI or cryptocurrency, I was gonna lose my fucking mind, dude. I'm telling you right now. It was ridiculous. But again, even if you want to say that, it is generally made for overall entertainment, and it just prompts up a lot of that different stuff over the actual game itself. Man, for the Seahawks, as I've already said, they get their second Super Bowl win in franchise history. And for the Patriots, it is a tough loss, but it could spark a fire in a young, hungry football team that will be tested. Their strength of schedule will more than likely increase in difficulty after a season like this. That's how it typically works. But I do believe that they can be ready. Only time will tell. But for that, and even with it being somewhat anticlimactic game from that standpoint, what a fucking NFL season it was. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and all the different videos from this season. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I guess the last one will be me focusing on developments, generally speaking, around the Super Bowl. There is just some craziness there. But, I do have to look into a few. So I will see you guys in that one. Peace.